Hello, everyone. Lloyd Moyer here. Uh, I think on my last video, you saw me rough out this piece of black walnut into a rough bowl shape, and then I said I was going to throw it into some shavings and then come back later and finish it. So here I am. It's probably about 10 days later, and we're going to finish it. It's still very wet, I'm sure. So it's going to move a bunch and warp, and we'll see what we get. So thanks for sticking with me. The first thing I'm going to do is mount this. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is clean off some of this dust and dirt that is sitting on the bottom of the bowl from sitting in the shavings. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close. And then I'm going to mount this back into the chuck that I roughed it on. And I'm just going to put a ridge on the inside of the bowl so that I can turn this around, put it on the chuck, and finish the bottom. I am someone who likes to I finish the outside and the bottom first, and do that entirely, so that when I take this bowl out of the chuck, it's done. It's 100% done. This one won't be 100% done because I'll put it in the microwave before I put any oil or anything on it to speed the drying process. But that's how I like to do it. When I'm well, I'll show you when I get there. It's much easier for me, and just my preferred way of working to finish the outside from the outside rather than do the outside, finish the inside, then turn the bowl back around to finish the bottom. That just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, that being said, if that's how you like to do it, that's fine too. You work how you want to work. Just not how I want to work. I'm just truing this up for starters. And then I take my, this is my dovetail tool. It's just a scraper with a dovetail cut out into it that is wonderfully useful for this one job. It only has this one job, but it's good at it. It's very convenient. Works better when it's sharp, though. Doesn't take a whole lot to sharpen it. Oh, that's better. This also doesn't need a huge shoulder to fit into. Just enough. And it just has to be big enough so that the chuck can fit into it. So the chuck can expand into it without being too big. I'm just going to sort of eyeball it from the outside, since I'm going to use the same chuck that I have that I'm holding it with right now. I think that's okay. Let's test it out. The more you do this, the better you get at it, but I feel like I've never been all that great at judging the diameter for an expansion joint. But you still practice. This has to get smaller. And then you can just, I really just hang the bowl on here and then expand it. Okay. Now I'm just going to true everything up, and we'll set the right size for the foot. And I will true up with my spindle gouge. It's actually not even all that out of round yet. Notice that the tool is right about at, or the tool rest is set so that the tool is right about at center if it's being held horizontally. I'm thinking I will probably come back and maybe take this foot off because it's going to warp. But I still want it to be somewhat concave so that when it does warp, no matter how it warps, it's never going to rest on the very middle, so it'll still sit pretty nicely. I've noticed in the other pieces that I've done from this this piece of wood, it mostly is just going oval rather than shifting up and down. But now I'm just going to set the size of my foot so that it does fit into the chuck jaws just right. And if I decide I want to keep the foot, I won't have any chuck marks on it. Though also, if I keep the foot, I will have to put it back on and clean it up because the wood is so wet and there's lots of tannins in the wood. The chuck will darken, stain the foot. If you watch the video of this bowl being rough, you might remember I showed that off a little bit. Sorry, the tool is playing footsie with the camera stand. Coming around and getting a little shearing cut. And notice I'm not going all the way to the end of the curve. That's because if you go off to the edge of the bowl, you're going to push the fibers right at the rim out because there's nothing supporting them to hold them and make them cut rather than break out. So that will messes up the rim of the bowl. You have to go in and shorten it later. I'm not going for anything real complicated with this rim, or with this profile. I'm just going to leave it kind of simple, and I might put some beads on here to emphasize the movement of the bowl. So I'm just going to come in here with my shear scraper. And what I like about a scraper is that the surface that I'm using to cut is longer than the bevel of the gouge, so I get it's easier for me to sort of get like a sweeping curve. Now when I'm doing a shear cut like this, that's not the case. Also notice this walnut is not getting a very nice cut with the shear scrape. This this sapwood is tearing out, although that will sand very easily. But it's good practice to try and get a good cut. I've been away from my lathe for a few days, so it's nice to be back. Okay. I think that's as nice a cut as I'm going to get. I'm going to try a shear scrape with the gouge. And the secret to a good cut, shear or otherwise, is to go slowly. That actually that helped a bit. It's a nicer cut, but the sandpaper will actually take care of that. I'm not usually one to count so heavily on sanding, but in this case, this is just very, I don't know if you can see it, it's just very fine. It's not even tear out, it's just the wood, because the wood is wet, it's a little bit hairy. I mean, I can't describe it any other way. It's like beard stubble. I'm now looking at the profile. Maybe I can give you a view of the profile. So when I'm designing, I'm looking along here, looking at that profile. See if it's a smooth curve, and see if it's a pleasing curve. There's a little hump right here that needs to come out, but actually the sandpaper will smooth that off. And you see it curves in just slightly at the very edge, which is how I like it also. So I think that's fine. I think I'm just gonna sand that. I'm gonna put a couple of beads on it first, I think, actually. I'll do a couple of beads, maybe here, and then we can sand. To do the beads, I'm gonna use my smaller spindle gouge. And I'm just pivoting in, I'm not pushing in, I'm just pivoting in, and actually I'm going to do these beads just by pivoting in and making grooves. Just like that. I think 2 is enough. And then I'm going to come back and round the edges off. These beads are small enough that I can cut them this way rather than trying to cut the whole bead at once. Because this wood is pretty damp, I am going to start with 120 grit. And 120 grit should dry out the surface a little bit. The friction of the 120 grit should dry off the surface enough so that it can sand. don't usually power sand the outside of a bowl, but I'm going to try it this time because this the hairy grain is still kind of hairy. Now, when I get to the end of this and I want to put this back around so I can take the foot off, I'm going to want the center. So the way I'm going to mark this is I just make a mark on the foot and drift the pencil in and actually leave a space at the middle. And that's my center. That's easier for me than trying to make a dot right in the center. For the inside of the bowl, I will be using my my 1/2-inch bowl gouge, which is this is the McNaughton Center Saver tool handle. I don't really use the Center Saver. I never learned how to use it properly, and I just don't take the time. And I have never been able to have anybody teach me, but the tool handle is very useful because I like a heavier and longer tool handle. So again, I am just about at center height. And because this is still wet, I'm gonna make this relatively thin. I'm gonna start by, I don't make my bowls very thin. I believe in dropping them on the floor and continuing to use them. But in a situation like this where the bowl is going to warp, I want it to still be flexible. So while it won't be paper thin, it'll be thin enough to still be flexible. I have my bowl gouge ground, I don't know if you can see, with a long bevel on the left side and a slightly steeper, more traditional bevel on the other side. And it just gives me the ability to have both a longer bevel when I need it and a shorter one. For those of you curious and concerned, I am turning at about just a touch over 1,000 RPMs. When turning green wood to finish, as I am trying to do here, I recommend making your decisions and going with them and finishing quickly, because the bowl will start to warp even as you're working on it. So don't take a whole lot of time to concentrate. Certainly don't stop for lunch. Because when you come back, you're going to have to start over again. little bump. Probably can't see, but I can feel. Another one right here. That'll be fine. Trying to do as much of this as I can with the gouge, because as I said before, on the outside, this piece seems to be cutting more nicely than it scrapes. So now, since I am going to do the very middle with the scraper, I need to come up a little bit so that when I'm working the center, I can be very slightly angled down. See this hairy grain. It just doesn't want to scrape because it's so wet. It's nice and flexible. It'll come up even a little bit more. So I don't know if you can tell what's happening, but I'm cutting a piece of the grain and then it's getting stuck in between the next part of the cut and the blade, which happens sometimes, or at least it happens to me sometimes, when the wood is very wet. I'm going to try a more rounded blade. That's the trick. Okay, so that's the inside. And that gets sanded. Again, this is like the outside. This has some hairy grain to it, so it's going to be an adventure. So that's the turning and the sanding done. I'm now going to take this off of the lathe, and it is going to go inside and into the microwave. And I will come back and show you how it comes out. Notice there is some moisture that came through, which is interesting. But I'm not going to turn the foot off just yet, because what I often find when I microwave the walnut, the grain really stands up. So I'm going to want to come back and put this back on and run the 320 grit sandpaper over it again when I'm done. And actually, I will take this little bit of staining from the moisture coming through. I will take that off then as well. See you in a few. It is now a couple of hours later, and this bowl has gone into the microwave 4 times. 90 seconds the first time and 2 minutes each additional time. It has not really moved a whole lot. It has gone a bit oval. It is 11.5 inches in one direction and 11 3/4 inches in the other direction. So I was expecting it to move a bit more, but we don't complain about such things. So I'm going to put this back on the lathe. You can see how it's moved a little bit. Because it is very out of whack, it hasn't moved a whole lot, but it has moved. I am not cranking this way up in speed. It's going about 330 RPMs here. And this is just 320 grit. And all I'm really trying to do here is sometimes with this particular piece of black walnut, and I've seen it happen before also, when it's good and wet, the microwave will actually cause some of the end grain fibers to stand up. So we're just going to grind them down. The other thing that moving slowly helps with is, I'm just holding this and I'm still staying attached, I'm still staying up against the wood because it's moving slowly. It's just, pushing my hand back. So now I'm going to put some finish on it. Actually, I just have some walnut oil here to start with. This is maybe one of the most fun parts of this craft, because when you put the oil on or any of the finish on, it really makes the grain pop, and it really shows you what you've created as far as your finished piece. I'm just going to do the backside here. I realize you can't see what I'm doing. Came loose, but that's okay. I'm done. It's another reason I don't turn this too quickly, because the foot has also become uneven in the microwave. So I don't want it flying off the chuck, which it would have done if it was going fast. Now I am going to turn this foot away. Not going to make it flat. I'm just going to turn the foot. I'm just going to turn the corner off. So I'm going to need a jam chuck. What I use most often for that lately is this piece of, I don't know what, I think this is American red cedar. Need a different chuck. That's pretty close to round. I can just screw it up though. I'm also going to use a piece of drawer, kitchen drawer padding. Basically, this is just really just exactly what it's actually. It's non-slip, so it can go into your drawers or under rugs is the most common use for it, I believe. And I have my little mark there of center. So that lines that up, but I actually don't want to have, now that I'm standing here with both my hands working, I actually don't think I want to have the mark from the tail center. I'm going to turn this vacuum off. I don't want to have the mark from that tail center in the middle. So I have this little piece of, this is actually a piece of a product sign, but it's just a piece of particle board. So it also is going to be softer than the walnut. So it shouldn't dent it. The walnut should dent the small piece rather than the other way around. First, I just want to get it lined up. That's going to be pretty good. Now, I have this held in between centers, between the jam chuck and the tail center, but it is still not a super secure hold by any means. So again, I'm not going to go, turning anything at thousands of RPMs. This again is about 330 RPMs. And this is just a shearing cut I'm doing with the side of the spindle gouge. Normally you would do this when the bowl is still round before I threw it in the microwave is how I would normally do this. But as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be able to put this back on the lathe and sand it just a little bit. Still have some of that hairy grain there. Again, not anything I'm worried about. That has a little bit of a curve as it goes down into the foot, which I think is going to be just fine. And I'm going to flatten off where the bowl is going to be sitting. Since I got it here, I might as well. All right, now that's going to get sanded. For that, I feel like I can turn the speed back up a bit, although I have to turn the vacuum on. When I say turn the speed up, I did not turn it up to 1,000 RPMs. I turned it up from about 330 to about 460. Basically, what I put in here is an OG, sort of an S-shaped curve. I was sort of hoping that this would have warped a little more dramatically, but we'll see what the next few weeks hold. We'll maybe it'll move a bit more. Nevertheless, I believe that's come out quite nicely. You have a little undulation in the rim, not a big one, but a little one. And the grain on this one is quite pretty. I have some more pieces of this to finish as well. And you see the OG on the bottom there. So even as that warps a little more, it might wobble a little bit, but it'll never tip over or anything. So there it is. Thank you very, very much for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. You got any questions or comments or anything like that? Feel free to drop a comment. I'd love it if you'd follow me also. Thank you. Bye.